Hello, everybody. Welcome into the AJC Community Conversation presented by PNC Bank, a sponsor of the AJC Peachtree Road Race. My name is Brandon Adams. We're here to talk about one of the great events in our city made different this year, the virtual running of the AJC Peachtree Road Race, which will begin on Thanksgiving and take place over the course of the next couple of days. A lot of your questions tonight will be answered about all of that. We'll also take some time to celebrate this great moment in our city, the heritage that it obviously has in connection to the city of Atlanta, but also the racing scene, the track scene that this event is such a big part of. We will do a lot to pay homage to all of that over the course of the evening with a very distinguished panel, and I'll introduce them coming up in a moment. Let me also remind you, whether you're watching on Facebook or YouTube tonight, you have your chance to ask your question. Many people have already submitted questions about what they want to know about the virtual process of this year's race, selecting a route, how they'll get their t-shirt, what exactly the app will be like as they record their times. We'll try to answer all of those. In fact, we will answer all of those over the course of the evening. And as the show goes on, if you don't hear the question that you hope to have answered tonight, go ahead and drop that into the Facebook or the YouTube comment section. We'll read many of those live on the air. And if you just want to give a shout out to all the great folks getting ready for the running of the virtual AJC Peachtree Road Race coming up this week, obviously we'll look forward to reading those comments from you there as well. All of this tonight, as I said, is brought to you by our friends at the PNC Bank. As a proud sponsor of the AJC Peachtree Road Race, PNC Bank celebrates those that are working to make the world a better place. Their focus is on giving back to the community and also a commitment to customers as well, and the employees and everything that makes PNC Bank such a special place to do business with. If you want to find out more about this, go to pnc.com/about us. That's pnc.com/about us. Of course, PNC Bank, member of the National Association and a member of FDIC. Check out PNC Bank today online at pnc.com/about us. All right, so we have a great panel tonight that we'll be hearing from about the running of the virtual AJC Peachtree Road Race and about all that has led up to getting us here tonight. Let me take a moment to introduce everyone that we'll get a chance to be hearing from over the course of the next few minutes, starting with Rich Kanah, the Executive Director of the Atlanta Track Club. Rich, it's great to see you again. Thank you so much for being with us here this evening.
Hey, Brandon, thanks for having me.
Molly Seidel is a member of the United States Olympic team. She's also got some fun stuff planned for the AJC Peachtree Road Race this week. Molly, we're looking forward to a chance to speak to you here this evening.
Yeah, glad to be with you guys.
And Ben True is a U.S. record holder for the road 5K here in the United States of America, a terrific runner and just a great voice in the track scene here in the United States and really around the world. Ben, thanks so much for you being with us here tonight as well.
Yeah, thank you. Excited to be here.
And of course, Ken Segura is a name that fans of the AJC Peachtree Road Race know well. Great reporter for the AJC, been covering the AJC Peachtree Road Race for quite some time. Ken, we're looking forward to a chance to speak to you this evening. We've already enjoyed so much of your great coverage of the event as we get ready for it here coming up this week.
Looking forward to it. It's a great race. I love writing about it.
Yeah, absolutely. It is a great race, and it's a great moment for our city. We're looking forward to finding out more about how it's going to go this year. With that in mind, Rich Kanah, let me bring you in. Let's spend a couple of minutes off this right off the top. It's obviously a different event this year, not the customary July 4th day with the huge crowds gathered all over the place. That wasn't possible in a year like this where we're all impacted by the global pandemic. But you guys there at the Atlanta Track Club have done so much work to make this year's event. I think it's going to be really fun, and it's certainly going to be a memorable event for everyone who's involved. So let's just kind of walk through a little bit about how the virtual race is going to work. And we can start where you want to start, but it seems like, maybe explaining how the app is going to go and how people can use that to make maybe feel more connected to others who are running other places. Why don't we begin right there and just give us a little bit of an overview about how this is all going to go down over the course of the next couple of days?
Sure, I'll give it a shot there, Brandon. So let's start by setting the stage. This, in a normal year, would be the 51st running of the AJC Peachtree Road Race. So it really was the launch into our next decade, if you will, our next half century. And obviously, we ended up having to make a choice to go with a virtual event. A year ago, if you had asked me if the track club would invest itself in virtual programming, I would have said no way. I'm much more of a traditional guy. But a year changes your perspective on things. So I would start with a virtual event for the track club is one that has people moving forward, running and walking. It is a shareable event, meaning you can share your experience in some way. And it is one in which we try to capture your results. So as close to an in-person event as possible. So fast forward to the virtual running of the Peachtree this year. And it is really largely built around our app technology, which we have launched in this last week. And that is around the ability to track your performance wherever you are in the world on the 10K course that is the AJC Peachtree Road Race. So whether you're like Ben in New Hampshire, or Molly who is in Washington today, or someone who's in Australia or Japan or wherever, they can complete their Peachtree just using the app. And then that result will be sort of thrown into the 45,000 other results, and you'll be able to measure your performance against 45,000 of your best friends.
And of course, in addition to that, there are all these other things that I think someone like me associates with the AJC Peachtree Road Race, whether it's the bibs that the runners are wearing or the T-shirt that really becomes one of the great trophies. You go see fireworks on the 4th of July night. Those T-shirts are everywhere all across the city of Atlanta. And that's still a part of this, even though the race is being run virtually this year, right?
That is correct. So we pivoted this fall and we made the decision to keep that traditional finisher shirt. And to be clear, the Peachtree is different than most road races and marathons around the world, in that you do not get your participant shirt until you cross the finish line. So we call it the finisher shirt. So we wanted to keep that authentic shirt going to every participant. But what we did is we're going to take a leap of faith. We're going to borrow a page from golf, and we're going to put everybody in the honor system. Everyone is going to get their shirt ahead of time. And they should have, most of them, already been received, delivered by our partners at UPS. And if they haven't, you will get them before race day. So everyone should have their finisher shirt before they start.
And obviously, you and I have talked about this before, but you said that you're a traditionalist in many ways. You would have preferred, obviously, in person, and I think everyone would. In addition to being a great celebration of sport and athleticism, this is also like one of the great social events on the Atlanta calendar typically. So knowing that that wasn't going to be possible this year, how tough was that transition to the virtual event? And how important was it, whether it's through the app or through the kinds of conversation we're having tonight, finding a way to make sure you maintain that social element, people connecting with people, even in a time in which we're not supposed to get too close to other people?
So to your point, this is much more than a road race. It is what I would call the world's largest running party, but it is also known by many as Atlanta's greatest day. So from an operational perspective, it was not hard to make this decision because it became clear this summer that we would not be able to do it safely. Emotionally, for me and everybody else here at the track club, it was a difficult decision. Do you invest yourself and the club and the community in a virtual experience, or do you cancel the event? And we opted to go this virtual route and to build elements into the virtual experience that would make it authentic. So as you are starting on your journey, you will hear the mayor, you will hear the national anthem, and you will hear some well-known voices that you are accustomed to hearing on the course on the 4th of July.
And Kent Segura, let me bring you in on this because I know you've covered this event for the AJC for a long time. We talked T-shirts a moment ago. For that finisher shirt, you've obviously chronicled the way in which this shirt has kind of the legend of it has grown over the years, the passion people have for that. For maybe people who might be tuned in tonight that might not be fully up to speed on that or not fully aware of that, or just for the people who've enjoyed being on this journey the same way that you have. I mean, what does the finisher shirt mean to you, and how much do you enjoy seeing the passion that folks have for that each and every year?
Sure. It's a badge of honor. I mean, when it's kind of like what you're saying, you don't get it just because you sign up, you get it at the end when you finish. And so like you were saying before, you go around on 4th of July to the fireworks show, to the picnics that everyone's having, and everyone's wearing their shirt that they earned that morning because it's a big deal. And, you see, just being around Atlanta, you see people wearing those shirts, 10, 5, 15, 20 years old, those shirts that they won that long ago. But, these are things that you don't get rid of. You don't give them away to Goodwill or whomever. These are things that you keep because they're important. They say that, I ran the Peachtree, which is one of those things that's kind of a true to Atlanta sort of event that, I think everyone in Atlanta recognizes.
Let me bring in Molly and Ben on this as well. You know, you guys are both world-class runners. You run around the world. You've run across the country, and this is Atlanta's big day on that scene. Molly, let me start with you, if you don't mind. When you think of Atlanta as a racing destination, the AJC Peachtree Road Race in particular, as someone who's run everywhere, we'll be running in Japan next summer for the Summer Olympics for our United States team. How do you view Atlanta as a racing city? Maybe how do you think of the AJC Peachtree Road Race in particular? What's the outside perspective on an event like this across our country?
Yeah, I think there's a number of like really historic and just like these huge road races that have so much history with them and really get people excited to race. And for me personally, as a professional athlete, like getting to race Peachtree is one of those races. It's like, it's been going for, I believe this is the 51st year. I got to do the 50th last year. And it's just really special getting to do it with thousands of people. You're with some of the fastest women and men in the world. And like, it's just a screaming fast course too, when we get to do it in person. So it's definitely a little bit different this year with the virtual, but it's really fun to still get to be a part of that spirit and tradition of the race.
Ben, what would you add to that?
Yeah, I can just remember when I ran, the only time I've run Peachtree was probably in 2011, I think. And I just remember going to the line and looking behind me and seeing 55, 60,000 people. And at that time, it was the largest road race I've ever been a part of. And just all that energy that's, corralled there at the starting line. It's just absolutely phenomenal. And then along the whole course, the band's playing and everything, it's definitely a celebration of the entire city. And so it's sad that's not gonna be in person this year, but we can still have that same celebration virtually.
You were also saying that one of your races in Atlanta was also a pretty significant moment for you there as well, right? Running in the city of Atlanta.
Yeah, I was able to win the US 10K championships there. So, I have the trophy, I have to say, for the Peachtree Trophy, which is a glass peach that's atop of a base, is one of the cooler trophies I've ever received.
Well, I have to say, as an Atlanta sports fan, our city's history of getting trophies and championships the last few years hasn't been as good as it should have been. So I'm glad to know that our city was at least able to provide you with one of those there as well. And Molly, I'm kind of curious to know, would you join Ben in saying that when you have the thousands and thousands of runners behind you in a normal race, that you do feed off that? Obviously, the energy on the sides of the roads as you're running, you can certainly feel that. But with the tens upon tens of thousands of people who are looking to kind of, follow in line behind you, is that something that you can also feel and something you can also notice when you're up there near the front of the pack?
Yeah, as he was saying that, I wanted to add in that it's like when that gun goes off, you feel like you're surfing like a tidal wave of people, and even like heading to the line where like the music is pounding and there's just so much energy there. It's like nothing I've ever experienced. There's nothing quite like, being on the front line the start line in front of 60,000 people. It's insane.
And I understand that this year you have something pretty special planned. We've heard from a lot of people on this that there's a lot of excitement about the particular thing you're doing as the Peachtree Road Race goes from a 4th of July event to a Thanksgiving event this year. It seems like you're all set and ready to go to make this a lot of fun this year. Would you mind telling folks a little bit more about what you're going to do?
Yeah, so I'm glad that I get to combine the Peachtree Road Race with my tradition of racing a turkey trot in my turkey costume, which I haven't gotten to do it the last couple of years, but this seemed like the prime time to bring the tradition back. So I will be racing this year's virtual Peachtree in a felt children's turkey costume.
So I've got to ask you, because I think a lot of us have gotten more used to wearing the facial covering masks we probably wanted to wear. Maybe we feel a little bit more constricted than we're normally used to feeling, at least normally. What's it like running with, as you said before, like a full-on costume? And I think we've got the image we can show to our folks on the screen here. What's it like running in something like that, especially for someone like you, who's a world-class runner that obviously notices, everything about the way in which you're running? How different is it to be completely covered up in something like that?
It's not optimal, I would have to say. The combination of felt for the material, which is not breathable, but also not warm at all. Also with the cardboard tail that loops over my shoulders is a little bit restrictive, and I wear a full like turkey hood as well. So
Of course.
I think I probably will forego the feet this year in trying to like, I think I'm willing to sacrifice that part of the costume for a little bit more speed just because they flop around everywhere. So yeah.
At the risk of giving people more information than they want, I'm sure that sweat and felt probably don't combine very well with each other. Probably, is that probably fair to say?
Yeah, no, it's not a wicking material, let's just
Yeah.
say.
How did you get the idea to do this? Where did the genesis of all this come from?
It basically came from the fact that, so growing up, my family is not a family of runners. We actually never did turkey trots. When I was growing up, we were actually always like ski racing. So I did my first turkey trot right after I won my my second NCAA championship when I was in college, right after the cross country season. And we were joking around that we were going to break this curse that no Seidel had ever completed a turkey trot. And not really knowing what turkey trots were about, my sister and I we went and got costumes. I got a turkey costume. She got an elf costume. And we showed up. We were the only people in costume at the race. But yeah, then from there, every turkey trot I did afterwards, I just kind of wore the costume. And now as a professional runner, I can't always take those fun racing opportunities. It's more of a job. So when they were going to let me do it this year for Peachtree, I felt like I should jump back on that.
And when you've done it before, my understanding is, because I've seen some of the stuff on the internet about this, it seems like in every town that you're in, the local media, everybody kind of gets behind this. It just becomes kind of a cool way to, make it fun for everybody, right? I mean, certainly that seems to be the experience I've noticed based on some of the ways in which your story has been covered other places.
Yeah, I think people really enjoy when pros don't take themselves too seriously. And I think this is probably about the least serious thing that I could possibly do. So
And Ken, I'll bring you back in this as well, because while Molly's right, she's a pro, and this is a chance for her to maybe show her, lighter side, have some fun with it in a way that a professional athlete might not typically be able to do. This is also very much a part of what people have been doing in the AJC Peachtree Road Race for years. When I've seen the event, you do see a lot of costumes. You do see a lot of people who obviously wouldn't have the capability of putting up a huge time, but they want to have, a lot of fun and, getting dressed up, showing off their personality. That's a big part of what goes down with this event for the folks kind of more near the back of the pack, the average runners like maybe you and me. Sometimes costumes and dressing up and showing off your personality, that's a big part of it, right?
Yeah, very much so. It's, it's obviously normally on the 4th of July. So you see a lot of Captain Americas and Wonder Womans and Lady Liberties, kind of like that. But yeah, you see some different stuff, just people just having fun. I remember when the World Cup was in South Africa, there was this group of kids that were dressed up in, different soccer jerseys with their vuvuzelas. And I remember a guy had it was like a gladiator costume made out of beer cans once. And so, yeah, it's just a lot of fun. It's not, clearly this isn't, for a small pocket of people, it's a race and time to get a way to get a good time or run, see how fast you can run. But for most of us, yeah, it's a way to just kind of celebrate. And so I think this year might be a lot tougher to have the guts to wear a turkey costume or whatever in your neighborhood running by yourself. But hopefully we'll see some of those pictures.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That makes for a very interesting visual. And Ken, one of the things that you and I have also talked about a little bit this week is it's really one of those moments that marks time for so many people. And there are every year people who get a chance to do it for the first time. There are people who do it for the first time in a long time. And yet in some cases, Ken, there are also people who find a way to make sure they do it each and every year and really, almost collect a streak that becomes a real source of pride for them. Even this year with the virtual race, it sounds like we've seen some of that as well.
Yeah, I remember I spoke with Bill Thorne, who's the only person who's run every Peachtree, and I spoke with him a little bit before the 4th, and he was telling me, he had his plan. Just even though there wasn't a race, it's the 4th of July. He runs, 10K every year, and so I understand he'll be doing that again. And so yeah, it's you in covering the race, you talk to people, and they take a lot of pride. And yeah, I've run the last 15 or 20 running races, so it's I'm sure for a lot of people it'll be important for them to be out there on Thanksgiving and extending the streak.
Well, Rich, let me bring you back on this. Speaking of pride, as someone who's the executive director of the Atlanta Track Club and putting in so many tireless hours and making sure events like this go off well every year, this year in particular with the virtual running of the AJC Peachtree Road Race, how great does it make you feel that people do view this as a yearly tradition for them, or people, want to take a page off Molly's book and say, hey, let's find a way to make this as fun as possible. I'm not going to run as fast as the professional athletes, but I can make sure I have as much fun as they do coming up on race day. How much of a sense of pride does that fill you with, and for the Atlanta Track Club in general, knowing that it means so many different things to so many different people?
That's the beauty of the Peachtree. Just what you said there at the end is it means so many different things to so many different people. So last year in the 50th running, we had the fastest foot race and the fastest wheelchair race ever in the 50 years here, the fastest times ever recorded for the distance on U.S. soil. The flip side is we brought Atlanta together in a way that no other event does. So while we attract participants from around the world, 90% of the registrants in any given year are from the state of Georgia. So this is very much a local phenomenon that occasionally pulls people from around the country and around the world. And that's the beautiful thing about this year's virtual event, is that we are able to spread the Peachtree love, if you will, the world over.
That's a great thing to be able to see. By the way, you're watching our AJC Community Conversation. It's presented tonight by PNC Bank, which is a proud sponsor of the AJC Peachtree Road Race. We're looking at the event taking place starting on Thanksgiving Day. And for folks running their virtual round, they'll have a couple days beyond that to get their times in. And we're answering a lot of your questions about how that's going to go. We will also continue to take your questions and comments on Facebook and YouTube as we just sort of celebrate the racing scene in Atlanta. We're very lucky to have Ben True and Molly Seidel, two great world-class runners here with us tonight, talking about their careers and kind of what the racing scene this date in Atlanta, what that means for so many people in the racing scene. So we'll continue to have this conversation ongoing throughout the evening. Rich, let me also keep you going here. Comment coming in, question from Arthur on YouTube about the app. Arthur's question is, does it stop manually at 6.2 miles, or must I manually end the run?
That's a great question. The app is designed to automatically stop or end and call out your finish at the finish line, so at 6.2 miles. If you are on an Android phone and if you have your setting that allows your phone to go to sleep, you will have to manually do that. So if you're on iOS, if you're on an Apple, it takes care of itself and automatically submits that result on your behalf.
Let me also, on this same subject for a moment, Rich. So the race, different than a normal running when the race date is on July 4th, this is a race period that begins with Thanksgiving Day. Would you mind, just for maybe folks who are just joining us, or for people who may want further for clarification, how the race period works in terms of clocking your time, getting that submitted to the app? Give us a little bit more of an idea of what this period, which begins on Thanksgiving Day, what that's going to be like.
Sure. So one of the aspects of a successful virtual event is to give a relatively narrow window where a community can come together virtually and participate. So we didn't want to spread it over too many days, but knowing that it's a holiday weekend, we wanted to give people ample opportunity to finish their 10K. So starting Thursday morning, you can start and finish your Peachtree all the way through the end of the day on Sunday after Thanksgiving. So you've got 4 days to complete your virtual event.
Thank you for that, Rich. Really appreciate that. It's our AJC Community Conversation presented by PNC Bank tonight, looking at the AJC Peachtree Road Race. We had some fun with Molly a little bit ago talking about the turkey costume that she's going to wear, but Molly's more than just in this for fun. She's got a competitive side as well. In fact, Ben does too. When we come back, we're going to look at specifically what these racers are looking to accomplish. In particular, Molly may be looking for a little bit of what she's called maybe redemption after not maybe loving her time a year ago. We're going to talk to you more about that coming up in just a moment. We're going to take more of your questions and comments as well. But first, let's pause for a quick word from our friends at PNC Bank.
Make today a new you had it in you day. Make today a we need a bigger trophy case day. Make today a learning the basics day. Make today a finally going in on season tickets day. No matter the day, PNC has the financial tools and technology to help. PNC Bank. Make today the day.
So huge thanks to our friends at PNC Bank for making all this possible this evening. Also, while I've got your attention, let me tell you about a really fun offer from our friends at the AJC. In fact, you can see this on your screen, this really cool backpack. Now, this exclusive backpack is more than just a backpack. It commemorates the unique experience that we're all going to have this year running the virtual version of the AJC Peachtree Road Race. It's also a cooler as well. So listen, a lot of times running with coolers is a big part of the AJC Peachtree Road Race for a number of reasons for a lot of people. And this obviously can be a cool version of that for you as well. It's only available though to new subscribers for the AJC. So here's the website you want to go to find out more information about this. It's ajc.com/PRR. That's ajc.com/PRR. This offer is only available this week and next week. So you want to make sure you act right now. And once you get there, you can kind of choose from a number of subscription options, whether you want digital access only, you want digital access plus home delivery. You got a couple different options there. You get the really cool backpack/cooler, and who wouldn't want one of those? So let me give you the website to go to one more time. It's ajc.com/PRR. That's ajc.com/PRR. All right, let me bring everybody back in here. We're talking about the virtual running of the AJC Peachtree Road Race coming up this week. And Molly, we were talking before about your costume, the turkey costume. But my understanding is after the turkey run is done, you're also going to go into regular running clothes and also try to run the race again. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, so because the race is a couple days long, I'm going to take that opportunity to run in the actual turkey costume on Thanksgiving, and then go and try and do a little bit faster and see how much faster I can run a couple days later, probably on Sunday once I'm back in Boston.
Yeah, my understanding is you weren't as happy with your time last year as you would like to have been, and you're looking, I think the word that you've used before is redemption for this. Would you mind telling us a little bit more about that?
I don't know how much about redemption. It was more, I actually ended up really injuring my hip in last year's race. So that's more of the redemption, is trying to finish the race without breaking my hip. So yeah, I would say that just anything being able to finish it fast and healthy would be a good day for me.
What is the key, Molly, if you don't mind me asking for? I mean, for people who may be more familiar with other sports than the sport of racing, when you're looking to improve a time, when you're looking to be better than you were a year ago, is it a physical thing? Now, in your case, obviously, in dealing with an injury, there's clearly a physical component to this, but is it the mental component to being exactly where you want to be, or is it more about the physical preparation to make sure you run your best time?
Yeah, I think they go hand in hand. I think physically you have to be at your best. You have to be fit and ready to race, but also you have to have your head in the right space to do it. So I think if your mind isn't ready to go race and run fast, and you haven't done the work to kind of get yourself geared up for it, you could be the fittest person in the world and it might not work. So yeah, I would say it's a lot of both.
Ben, what would you add to that?
Yeah, it's a lot of it is the fitness, the work you put in the past, and realizing something like running is a sport where continuous work is what gets you better. So there's no one workout, there's no 1 week of training that's going to get you better for running. It's a kind of a lifelong endeavor that you put the miles in over a long period of time, and that's how you get faster.
Ben, I saw some comments from you maybe a few months ago. I think sometimes we may think of running as maybe a sport, in some cases, I don't want to say dominated by other countries, but other countries that may have enjoyed more success. And yet I saw some quotes from you about how you really feel like the American racing scene has grown over the course of the last few months. Really, the competition has been enhanced. Would you mind talking a little bit more about what you've actually seen from that as the United States of America does become a more competitive country in the world of track and racing?
Yeah, it's just something that we've seen over the last few years. I remember when I was growing up, there wasn't a lot of great American male distance runners that were also mixing it up with the very best in the world. And recently we've had that. We've had that success, and I don't know if that is necessarily a mindset, or we've just learned how to better compete against some of the other countries. But yeah, once you see one person being able to hang tough with the best in the world, and then that you've trained with them or you raced against them and you can race with them, I think that rises the entire collective up and realize we belong, we can race against the world's best. And I think that mindset has definitely shifted in American male distance.
You have been a person that's been a pretty active participant on social media. You have a pretty active YouTube page. You have a lot of videos you put up there. A lot of it's kind of even instructional based, where you kind of talk about some of your thought process going into things like that. As someone who I'm sure would love to see the American scene grow as much as possible, how much do you think, the proliferation of social media, where runners such as yourself can be on social media, whether it be YouTube or Twitter, or Instagram, something like that, talking about their process, cultivating more fans, cultivating more followers. How much do you think something like that helps the process of growing the American racing scene? So younger cross-country runners or people who are just young aspiring runners can look at someone like yourself and say, hey, I'd like to be like Ben one day, and they can actually follow your career in a way that in less modern times maybe there wasn't as much media attention paid towards it.
Yeah, I think it's a double-edged sword, though. I know when I was growing up, before social media, before all that, I just didn't know anything about running outside of Maine. I grew up in Maine, and I didn't even know there was national competitions. And so that has definitely changed. People are able to share ideas and training methods a lot better. And so I think that has helped raise from the grassroots up how to train and how to be able to better compete. But the problem a lot of times is social media isn't always real. And so a lot of people don't tell you the whole truth. And so some people see that you have to go and run hard every single day, when that's not really the case. There's a lot of times where you need to rest and recover, but that's not as glamorous to show on social media. And so that's not seen as much. And so I'm a little worried that people may go a little overboard and not see the reality that to make improvements, you need to stress the body, but then you need to rest and relax to allow those adaptations to happen to be able to go faster. And so rest and relaxation is just as important as those hard workouts.
It's interesting you would say that, because some of the videos that I've seen from you, it does seem like there's a heavy dose of realism in what you're saying, that you are trying to be yourself as someone who's obviously a world-class competitive runner, but not trying to make yourself into something, different than you are. It seems like you've tried to inject honesty when you've spoken with reporters, like you're kind of doing this evening, or, in other platforms. It seems like you've tried to keep things as real as you could possibly can. How much of that is a concerted effort where you intentionally set out to make sure that you didn't project something about yourself that wasn't 100% true?
I mean, that's completely accurate. I like honesty, and I like, my name's Ben True. I like the truth. I think
that's a good marketing opportunity, if nothing else, right?
Is the most important thing. And if you giving just half the story and half the argument, I think is almost worse than not giving the entire story, or giving the story at all, because it makes people lead to assumptions that may make things completely wrong and going down the wrong path. And so having the whole story and telling everything, the positives and the negatives, the good and the bad, the glamorous and the unglamorous, really shows what something actually is.
So, Rich, I'm curious of your perspective on this. We're talking to world-class runners right now about what it's like to be at the front of a pack on an event like this, and the work that you've done to cultivate Atlanta as a destination for elite racers, and to obviously have the AJC Peachtree Road Race in the minds of so many people, around the country, really in some cases around the world, as we head towards this week, a unique, version of the race, but nonetheless, the race is on people's mind. How much do you enjoy the idea of this not just being a social event that people like me enjoy being a part of, but that the elite runners look at a spot for major athletic competition? How much do you enjoy the cultivation of that part of the race?
So you talked earlier on about our challenge in Atlanta in terms of bringing home trophies for our home teams. For us, while the track club's mission is to impact health and wellness through running and walking, so make Atlanta healthier, we believe a big part of that is building Atlanta as a running destination. So we have a campaign that builds and sells Atlanta as Running City USA. So from the Olympic trials last year, where Molly just crushed the competition, to the Peachtree, where we talked about those fast times last year. We are building Atlanta as a true place for runners from around the world to want to come to experience. So Oregon is known as sort of the birthplace in many ways of the running movement in the United States. And there are great cities around the world that are known to have great races like the Boston Marathon or the London Marathon. And we look at Atlanta and the Peachtree as a place that stands side by side, if you will, with those other cities. And if I can add, but you're talking to Ben and to Molly about building American distance running. One of the reasons why American distance running has come so far over this last decade is because of athletes like Ben and Molly, because of how they handle themselves when the gun goes off, because they are incredible competitors. But because in conversations like this, you see that they're very real, everyday people that don't take themselves too seriously.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that, Rich, because let's face it, in any sporting endeavor, there's also a marketing side. That's you can't have events if they're not well marketed. And so when you do have, we're seeing this from Ben and Molly tonight, and other runners who'll be a part of the event as well, big personalities, people that are genuinely having a good time with the experience and also eager to see people also join them in the fun. As someone who's trying to market an event, but also market the sport, market the scene, how much does it make your job easier when some of the people there at the front of the pack, kind of bring the personality with them?
There are some people who ask us around the Peachtree, hey, why does the track club invest itself in bringing world-class athletes to Atlanta? And the answer is quite simple, and it answers your question, is we believe that athletes like Ben and Molly and all the others that have been part of the Peachtree tradition are inspirational and aspirational tools for kids and adults alike, for that person getting off the couch for the first time to that kid running their first elementary school race. So we see it as important to put the Bens and the Mollys front and center in front of Running City USA to inspire all of us.
And Ken, I'll bring you back in on this because, you've told a lot of great stories to the AJC for many years. You've covered Georgia Tech, you've covered the Falcons, you've covered a number of parts of our Atlanta sporting scene. What do you make of the cool juxtaposition that you have for an event like this, where you do have, folks kind of just looking to have fun, have a good time, and yet you've got also the elite athletes trying to make the most of the experience, trying to set personal bests, trying to, maintain, status as professional athletes. It's a really interesting cross-section of different kinds of people who take an event like this in, which makes for really rich stories, I would say, on both sides of it. As someone who's covered this event for a long time, Ken, what's that been like for you?
It really is kind of cool. I mean, in some ways, it is, like covering it is a major sporting event for that small cross section. Maybe they're running for a national championship or the Peachtree title. But at the same time, you've got 60,000 other people that are out there just to have a good time and to be silly and wear costumes and so forth. And I remember a few years ago, Rich did a really nice job of bringing those together. He had Mev Keflezighi, who's one of the the world's greatest marathoners. He started in the back of the pack and had him, run, with everybody and try to see how many people he could pass as a fundraiser. And so, to kind of, in a way, he was bringing both those parts of the race together. And I remember actually when he finished the cross line, Meb did, I took a picture of it, and kind of lo and behold, like two of my friends from church were in it. So it's kind of perfectly illustrates, it's very much for commoners or just, your average runners and normal people, but also, for the, some of the greatest runners in the world. So it really is a neat event in that way.
Well, speaking of competitive running, Ben, there's a certain part of your biography that I find very interesting, that you're part of kind of a competitive running household. Your wife, Sarah, is a terrific triathlete as well. What's it like being in a household where both the parties are really, looking to run and compete at the highest level? And, in the triathlete's case, multiple sports, multiple endeavors. What's it like being a part of a household like that?
High grocery bills. That's the big thing. No, it's nice. It's we're able to spend quite a bit of time together because we work from home, right? And then half our day is recovering, so it's always nice to be around each other. But at the same time, our job is to really push ourselves really hard in training and then recover from it. So it's always a battle of who's going to cook dinner that night or who's going to do the dishes, because usually at the end of the day, we're all both tired and it's it's a tough toss up, but no, it's nice. It's nice to have another athlete that you know each other, what they're mentally going through, and that really helps. A lot of times, it's hard to take a step back from your own body and listen to what the reason. But when your significant other is also in that situation and can tell you flat out, "Hey, you need a rest day because you're tired. This is why I know you're tired." And you know that they know what they're talking about. It's a little bit easier to be like, "All right, you're right. I can back off."
So I'm actually curious about this, that maybe on the one hand, you've spent so much time around your sport that when you're with your wife, you want it to be just a bowl of popcorn and watching a movie, or you're also with someone, one of the very few people in the world that actually has a pretty good idea of what you're going through, even though her discipline is slightly different than your own. Do you find yourself wanting to talk about your sport, she wanting to talk about her sport with you, or do you guys find it's more of a thing where you're looking to kind of escape that when you're with your significant other?
Yeah, try to escape. Definitely, it's one of those touchy subjects where she's not going to talk anything about running unless I bring it up, and I'm not going to talk anything about triathlon unless she brings it up. So you allow the other person to start the conversation about their own sport. Otherwise, you stay back and try to make it so it's a little bit of escapism for the day.
Molly, one of the things about this year's running of the virtual AJC Peachtree Road Race that I found to be really interesting is the freedom that people have to kind of select their own routes. And I was reading a little bit, it sounds like you're going to be running your route, kind of a beautiful part. I think it's Maine, I think that you're going to be running in. Would you mind telling us a little bit more about kind of how you selected your route and kind of exactly what that's going to be like?
Yeah, so we're actually spending Thanksgiving Day up with some friends who we've been kind of together with throughout the pandemic, our own little bubble. We're going to be on an island off the coast of Maine called Great Cranberry, funnily enough, for Thanksgiving. So it's like the island is barely 2 miles up and down, but they actually run an ultra marathon there. And so it's pretty funny. It's absolutely beautiful, shockingly hilly, but the entire community of the island has gotten pretty excited that we're doing it there. So we'll make sure we've had all of our COVID tests before we head up, and then we'll be banging it out up there, back and forth on the road.
So for people, obviously, if you've got a beautiful locale on an island in Maine, that's where you should run the AJC Peachtree Road Race. That sounds like a beautiful route. But for folks who maybe are just in a normal part of Atlanta, given the fact they do have some freedom to kind of choose how they want to run this, is there any advice that you would have, Molly, about, how to select a route, what would make it good, and, what folks should be looking for? I mean, obviously the terrain and the elevation is a part of this, but what else comes to mind for you, for people who may have a chance to really set out on their own journey and select their own routes?
Yeah, generally I found, so full disclosure, what I'm doing when I get back to Boston to try and run this as fast as possible, we have a 1,200 meter loop around Harvard that it is flat, it is sheltered from the wind, it is very fast, and the loops kind of help you know what pace you're going. So for me personally, trying to run as fast as possible, that's how I try to go about it. But I think pretty much any course that you're going to feel inspired on and be able to feel motivated to go run, I think is important, whether it's a looped course that you've got some friends and family cheering for you, whether it's an out and back course that's a beautiful scenery. I think it really depends on what you want out of the experience.
Yeah, Ben, do you have any thoughts on that? Because it seems like for me that if you have a chance to put some scenery beside you while you're running, it just seems like that's kind of a natural motivation, because you're obviously looking at something interesting as those miles kind of churn by. When it comes to route selection, is there anything that kind of comes to mind for you, for people who are either looking to get the best time they possibly can or just make the most of the experience? What comes to mind for you about that?
Yeah, I think, what Molly said, if you want to run fast, it should be flat, small turns, pretty straight. But that's usually tend to be a very boring route. And so finding something with scenery, finding, something a little off the beaten path, there's not very much traffic around, finding a place where you can have friends and family cheer you on from a safe distance, that all makes it a little bit more exciting. Something where there's not a lot of long straightaways, so you don't, keep tricking yourself about, how far you have left to go, always helps as well.
And Rich, this is one of those things where Obviously it's not the preferred situation. We'd all agree that everybody wants to be on, July 4th with the thousands and thousands of people. But for me personally, in hearing some stories of folks who are getting ready to do this and making their selection, finding all the ways in which people are making the most of this situation and being creative, maybe with the routes they're selecting, or just kind of having some fun with that whole process, everybody being a little bit different wherever they are. I'm sure for you, it must be gratifying to see the ways in which people are using some creativity with all this and just trying to make it the best they can possibly make it for this upcoming week.
I am enjoying that. The theme that I hear most often is that the Peachtree for the non-elites is not a race that's built for people to run fast, because of the heat and humidity and because of the number of participants. So there are a lot of people that as we are talking now, who are building out the fastest possible course that they can find, so that they can point to the year of 2020 as their Peachtree PR, their personal best time. But then you've got the thousands of other people who do the race for different reasons. And standing at the start line, I can tell you, I've seen Statue of Liberty costumes, I've seen bald eagles, I've seen a bunch of Ben Franklins, but I have never seen a turkey. So I would assume, and I hope maybe, that this is the only time that we'll see a turkey on or involved in Peachtree, because we move back to that 4th of July timeframe.
I don't know about that, Rich, though. I tell you, if the turkey really catches on this year, which I think it can, I love the idea of draping some red, white, and blue, some stars and stripes on the turkey, for next year's return to the 4th of July. I think that might not be a bad thing to kind of make a 4th of July version of the turkey after that.
If I could pop in, I think that might be a little bit rough with the Atlanta temperatures in mid-July. I've run there in July, and there's no way I am wearing a full-on felt turkey costume in 105-degree heat.
Rich, I think Molly may be right about that when you start thinking about those 4th of July temperatures, even early in the morning, you're still talking about a very difficult thing to have too much felt on. Felt does not go well with Atlanta summers, typically speaking.
So what we'll do is, when Molly comes back and wins the race next year, we'll ask her to put her turkey costume on the award stage.
I like the idea of that. Yeah, you could. We'll just retire the turkey costume. It'll hang from the proverbial rafters, if you will, after a big performance here this week. Molly and Ben, for those who are maybe less experienced as a runner, but they're eager to, have the best experience possible for this upcoming week. Molly, let me begin with you on this. How about some pre-race tips? We're a couple of days out. Obviously, the nutrition that you're consuming right now is important. The final days of stretching and training, things like that, I'm sure important as well. What kind of pre-race tips would you give folks who want to make the best of the experience as we head towards Thursday and then into the weekend?
Yeah, generally making sure that you're getting a lot of sleep in the days leading up, hydrating really well, and eating food that sits well with your stomach, good, healthy food. That I personally don't find a need to only eat carbs right before the race. I think as long as you're getting a good balance of food, that's pretty good. But yeah, kind of just trying to get yourself mentally and physically ready to go and race hard.
Ben, what would you add to that?
I would just, I think the mental aspect is a big thing. Making sure you have a good idea of exactly what you want to do, good idea of where the route's going to be, good idea of what time you're going to do it, the whole schedule and the process, have that mapped out, and I think that'll help a lot.
I saw a video with you. I think maybe like a sore Achilles, things like that. You battled a little bit of injury stuff lately, and one of the things I think you talked about, which I thought was kind of interesting, which I do think is helpful for a lot of folks running here, is for the average runner, not a world-class distance runner, but an average runner, you start the process. Maybe you feel some of those aches and pains, those little little tweaks, tinges. How do you know if that's something that you're supposed to push through, or how do you know if that's something you're kind of supposed to take seriously when it comes to people who may just not be quite as attuned to their body as someone like you or Molly might be? How do you know when an injury is significant enough that you really need to stop and think about it, as opposed to just to keep on going and basically try to show some discipline?
Yeah, that's a very tricky one. So I'm not a doctor, so I can't, don't listen to exactly what I say.
Sure.
But over the years, I've gotten to know my body well enough that I know what different pains feel like and what those mean. Typically, if something continues to hurt or gets worse as you're exercising, it usually means throw the brakes on, done, stop. If it's something that hurts a lot before, say when you wake up in the morning, but the more you move around, the more you get the body flowing, it starts subsiding and not hurting as much. Those are usually things that you can kind of, keep working through and probably still be able to run through on. Those are usually my general things, but there's a lot of nuance there as well.
No, I think that's great advice, and folks should obviously, do all their due diligence to take care of their own situation. But as a broad perspective, I think what you're saying there is probably absolutely true. Ken, when you think about this event and kind of what it means, we've chronicled a lot of this here tonight, but as someone who's covered so many of these, what do you think the AJC Peachtree Road Race, even in a year like this, what do you think this event truly means for the city of Atlanta?
I think what's great about it, and it's true this year too, it brings together, and I guess this year it's more virtual, so many different parts of Atlanta, not just geographic, but age, gender, you see all sorts of different body types there. People celebrating the race for different reasons. It's something they've done with their families for years, or someone's lost a lot of weight and has used the race as kind of a motivational tool, or they had some sort of disease or medical issues and are celebrating their health, with this race. And so it's great for that reason. Like I think Richard was saying before, it means a lot to a lot of different people for, a lot of different reasons. And so I think it's a great way to celebrate a lot of different things about, not just what make Atlanta great, but just what, just community as a whole, what makes it, and health and all those things, brings all those things together.
And Rich, I hope this is true for a lot of things in 2020, but the AJC Peachtree Road Race in particular, that the work that's gone on to make it the best it possibly can be this year, to make the best of a situation that none of us could have ever predicted. And also, we all want to be over as soon as possible, but making the most of the situation this year. I get the sense that when we look back on this 5 years from now, 10 years from now, as strange as all of this is, that it might create a special fondness for this version of the race, knowing all the people that have had to kind of pitch in to make the best of a less than ideal situation.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. That's my hope. In the short term, we're living through a time that we are, as a city, as a country, disconnected and divided. So in a weird sort of way, this race happening this week is a great way to bring us together in a really unique way. And I hope when, to your point, years down the road, when we look back, those who have had their streaks continue as a result of the pivot that we made, will look back and say, hey, that was really weird. It was different. It was fun. And a big part of my Peachtree memory bank.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. We're going to have some time for some audience questions here in a moment. So on Facebook and YouTube, you can continue to get yours in. I do want to mention this one in particular, though, because from Facebook, someone asked the question that I obviously wanted to ask myself. When you start looking ahead to 2021, Rich, is it too early to know what the 2021 version of the AJC Peachtree Road Race is going to be like? Is it too early to make those plans, or is it your vision that this is back on the 4th of July in the way that we've all kind of come to expect the event to be?
So we learned this year that you should take your time and make decisions at such a time where you feel like you can be certain in those decisions, rather than make a decision, have to change, make a decision, have to change, because the entire world learned that this year. So for us, we're going to take our time. And we're going to build a 2021, a 52nd running of the Peachtree, an in-person version of it in 2021. I can commit to that, and I can commit to an effort to get back to a new normal on the 4th of July. So what I would ask is everyone to stay tuned. After the first of the year, we'll provide some more detail, if you will, around how we see the 4th of July in 2021.
I think that's very well said. Ben, I'm curious, as a professional athlete, how the pandemic has impacted your career in terms of, what are you able to do? What are you not able to do right now? What kind of effects have you felt from the fact that lots of professional sports have seen calendars upended? How has that impacted you personally?
Yeah. The day-to-day training, I live in pretty rural New Hampshire, hasn't really changed because I train by myself and all I need is go out in the woods and run around in the trails. So I've been able to very easily socially distance and, do that normally. But all the competitions have been canceled. Starting out the year, I realized that this was going to be a bigger thing than a lot of people, I think, expected. It was going to take a lot longer than a lot of people expected. So I really never thought that I was really going to be able to race the entire year. I made one big push to run a marathon this fall, but then that was canceled as well. And so, you just gotta stay nimble, roll the punches, and just stay motivated, keep training, work on the weaknesses. That's the best time right now because there's no races. You can take those risks to work on the weaknesses that you have to just build up stronger for when the races resume.
And of course, Molly, I know a lot of your attention's on Tokyo heading towards this summer and the Olympics postponed by a year, but obviously in some form or fashion, the hope is the United States is, there in Japan competing, and obviously your mind's towards that, right?
Yeah, definitely. Everything I do between now and then is to prepare for getting on the line in Sapporo and racing. I've been lucky enough to have a few racing opportunities this year. I got the chance to go over to London and race the marathon there, as well as some other stuff here and there. That's why I'm in DC right now to race a 10-mile tomorrow. So yeah, kind of like what Ben said, it's just taking opportunities when you can get them, being nimble, being flexible, and yeah, just trying to roll with the punches here.
Okay, got a couple questions kind of rolling in. Some of these also pre-submitted questions from folks who signed up to be a part of our event tonight, brought to you by our friends at PNC Bank. Rich, this one's for you, and I guess a lot of these will probably end up being for you, Rich. Someone says they received their T-shirt, but their race number and the instructions on how to track the mileage didn't come in. Of course, we've dealt with a lot of stuff when it comes to the track mileage, but for someone who, or I should say for someone looking to track their mileage, but for someone who didn't get that race number, anything they can still do about that right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So you actually did receive in your packet your race number, which has no specific value for the race this year. That is something you can hang on your wall. It has the number 2020, so you can remember this year. What I would ask is if you did not get an email with the instructions on how to log into the app, email us at questions@atlantatrackclub.org, and we'll make sure we get an email off to you.
That's questions@atlantatrackclub.org. Speaking of that, somebody also wanted to know, and I know you've talked about this a little earlier, remind us once again what the name of the app is. If people are searching for the app, what's the app titled?
Search Peachtree Race.
Somebody checks in from Bowie, Maryland to ask that love the fact that the decision to provide the winning design T-shirt, is there consideration to maybe design and sell a Peachtree Road Race COVID finisher T-shirt, maybe a special one as a way of raising money for charity, anything like that? Rich, has that idea ever been kicked around?
That's a good question. So the finisher shirt is sacred. We don't sell that, right? So you need to participate, you need to finish. In terms of a fundraiser around a different shirt to help with relief efforts, certainly something for us to consider. Stay tuned.
Somebody from Atlanta also wants to know if I traditionally use another app to track my runs, would running two apps simultaneously interfere with the race day app? Do you have any knowledge of that? It doesn't seem like they would probably interfere. Would that be something someone would be able to do at the same time?
I'm going to ask you to email me at questions@atlantatrackclub.org, and I will make sure with our vendor that those two apps will not compete against each other.
Somebody also asked, that's a great point. Somebody also asked this, as you've kind of gone through this, what's been the best part about this for you, and what's been the most challenging part about this for you so far, Rich?
The best part about this is that despite all that has happened in 2020, and the registration happened in right as this pandemic was taking hold, we still have more than 40,000 people who wanted to be part of this Peachtree tradition. So it just speaks to how powerful this movement is, if you will, in Atlanta. The worst part, the most frustrating part, is not being able to give runners an answer, and that is the big learning for this year, because we provide solutions. We're really good at it, but we've never had to provide solutions around a pandemic. So hopefully 2021 we will have learned from 20.
Well, Rich, I can say on behalf of a lot of Atlantans, thank you so much for the work that you've done to make this event go off. I think it's going to be a huge success. I think it's going to be a lot of fun for thousands of people. So for you and your staff, your team there at the Atlanta Track Club, thank you so much for making this really another destination event, even if the actual date on the calendar is different. Thanks for the hard work that you've done to make this a lot of fun for us here as we head towards Thanksgiving.
It's our pleasure, and it's a labor of love for every staffer here at the Track Club.
And for Ben and Molly, you guys, thanks so much for being here this evening. I love hearing the stories about your careers, your thoughts on Atlanta, and just a lot of fun, talking to you about what is an event that so many people love. Thank you to both of you for really being a part of this tonight, and great expertise and great insight. It was really a pleasure to have both of you in the broadcast there as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
And Ken, of course, I'm looking forward to reading a lot from you at AJC.com and throughout the AJC as we head towards the race weekend here. And of course, all your great coverage. Ken, we appreciate you being part of the broadcast too.
Brandon, thanks for having me on.
And of course, the AJC Peachtree Road Race is something the AJC loves being a part of as a service to the people of Atlanta. It's just like the great journalism you get from the AJC each and every day. Told you before about the great subscription offer. If you want to find out more about that, go to subscribe.ajc.com/PRR. That's subscribe.ajc.com/PRR. Great opportunity to get the backpack/cooler. Have a lot of fun with that over the course of the next couple of weeks. That offer is going to be available. So please make sure you check that out. And a big thanks to our friends at PNC Bank for not only being a part of our community conversation here tonight, but to be a sponsor of the AJC Peachtree Road Race as well. Really a great commitment to make that event as great as can be. Our friends at PNC Bank have certainly done a great job with all of that. Our time is gone. Hard to believe the hour's flown by so fast, but thanks to all of you for being a part of our AJC community conversation tonight, presented by PNC Bank. Enjoy the virtual running of the AJC Peachtree Road Race here this week. Happy Thanksgiving to all of you, and we'll talk to you back here again very soon.